All right. Hi, everyone. It looks like we're already getting some participants logging on. So I'll get started because we have quite a bit to cover. My name is Cece Mortar, and I'm the Director of Business Development for the Steamboat Springs Chamber. Before we get started, I just have a few quick housekeeping notes. Please use the Q&A feature to submit questions if you want to submit them anonymously. Otherwise, you can use the chat or the Q&A. Make sure that your chat is set to everyone so that everyone can see your chat. And I will be sending out a copy of the slides and the webinar recording in a follow-up email. So you'll have that access to that. I want to give a big thank you to our sponsors who make this series possible: Mountain Valley Bank, Northwest Data Services, UC Health, Colorado Housing and Finance Authority in Routt County, and the Soul of Steamboat that's working directly with the Savings Collaborative to help fund some of these programs. I'm very excited to present this partnership with the Savings Collaborative to you guys today. They are a nonprofit organization with one simple goal: to help individuals and families build lasting financial stability. They don't sell anything. Their services are 100% free because of sponsors. So there's no strings attached for you guys. And then through their savings app, they work with Alpine Bank and First Bank. So all money is FDIC insured and federally backed. But they really aren't just an app. In fact, you don't have to use the app to get access to their other services. They offer one-on-one financial coaching, debt management, low interest emergency loan services, and much more that they're going to talk about in just a little bit. But today I'd like to introduce Enrique Aviles, lead bilingual financial coach at Savings Collaborative, and Dr. Barbara Freeman, CEO and founder of Savings Collaborative and a certified financial coach who also serves as a World Bank senior consultant. Thank you both for being here today, and I know you have a lot to talk about, so I will let you guys get started.
Thank you, Cece.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. We are so excited to be here with you. I am going to be really brief. I want to just share our mission is to build financial resilience and generational wealth. In order to do that, we bring together three main components: community, which is at the center, technology, and education. Our motto is little by little. That really the road to this generational wealth starts with saving, with financial coaching, with healthy financial habits, and importantly, to create the future that you want. Not the future that we want, not the future that Enrique wants for himself, but the one that you want. People-centered. So there are 5 programs here. I'm going to put them in buckets of 3. Really, there's the savings and emergency loans. We have a multilingual app which has monetary incentives and built-in cognitive nudges. We have a financial coaching program, which you're going to hear a lot about throughout the 3-part series. Really to help you budget, set goals, improve credit, decrease debt, and increase savings. And we also have a focused debt management program that can go deeper into making debt management plans, as well as a financial education program, which you're part of right now. So with all that said, I am going to take my seat and hand over to Enrique to take it from here. Enrique?
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for joining us. We appreciate your taking the time to be with us together today. So yes, this presentation today is a component of the 5 Foundations of Financial Health and Wellness series that we are going to be presenting to you over the course of the next several months, this being the first presentation. And so we are very excited to present this. Today, we're actually covering 2 of those foundations, which is money-life balance and then also the cash flow. But in order for you to have a better understanding of what all these 5 foundations are, I'm just going to show them here to you now. So there's the money-life balance component, the credit component, debt, cash flow, and savings and net worth. So these are the 5 components that comprise or make up a person's overall financial health and wellness. And again, today we're covering money life balance and cash flow because they flow very well together today. As we go through this presentation today, feel free to either ask questions if you have a question that you would like to pose. Either you can do so on the Zoom itself or via the chat. We have somebody monitoring the chat for any questions or particular comments that are made throughout the presentation. So feel free to do that. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is as we go through this presentation and anything that's shared through the course of our workshop today is maintained confidential. So we want to respect the confidentiality of everybody that is on the Zoom call today. Thanks so much. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the money life aspect of the presentation today. And when I talk about these components of financial health, I do like to make some analogies because they help to bring clarity to the topic at hand. So one of the ways that I like to present this is in the form of systems. So whenever we're and it because we all have a physical body, it's very easy to make an analogy to our physical body, right? So our bodies are comprised of several different systems. One of them being the digestive system, the skeletal system, respiratory system. But just to give you that example is that all of these systems have a different function. Yeah, each one has a specific function that contributes to the overall health of the body. But all of them working together comprise the overall health of the body itself. And so if any one of these systems is not working well, it impacts the whole. And similarly, one of the things that I really like to do in the course of this presentation is to give a visual. So the visual analogy of a human body. And in this analogy, I assign the different components of financial health to the different parts of the body, as you can see here, with money life balance being at the place where the head is on this silhouette of a body, credit being one arm, debt being a leg, cash flow the other leg, and savings and net worth being assigned to the other arm. So again, this just goes to show how the different parts of the body have different functions, but all of them work together as one to make the body function properly. And if ever any one of these parts of the body is injured or something is preventing it from functioning properly, it impacts the whole body, right? If you've ever had either like a broken leg, a broken arm, or not even necessarily broken, but injured, maybe having to walk on crutches or having a sling for your arm, you know how that impacts the whole movement and mobility of the body. And sometimes you have to compensate or overcompensate when you're in that sort of a scenario. So yeah, each and every component of a person's financial health is important, and each one influences or interacts with the other components as well. So it's important for us to not focus on any one at the detriment of neglecting another one. Whether it's focusing on credit, that's great, but we don't want to neglect the savings aspect. Or if we're focusing on the cash flow, that's great, but we don't want to neglect the debt component of overall financial health. And the money life balance is located at the head because that's purposeful. So there's that the head essentially is the central command center of the body. A person can function okay without the use of an arm or a leg, but you can't really function without the use of your head, right? There's no way to function when that important piece of the puzzle is not there. So same thing with the money life balance. One of the reasons I put it there is because everything flows from there, as we will see. And as we move forward, you'll understand more why why I like to start with the money life balance aspect of it. So that's what we're starting with in the course of this presentation. And again, feel free to, at any point in time, if you have any questions or comments, to either do so in the Zoom or the chat. All right, so in order for us to understand this money-life balance component, I'm going to ask you a question, and these are hypothetical questions. You don't have to answer them. These are for you. So in your life at this point and at this moment in your life, what are those things in your life that you consider most important? What are those things that are near and dear to your heart that are the most important things that essentially drive your actions and your motivations? And it could be a multitude of things, right? So it could be, for example, when I've done this presentation and in other groups, people mention a whole slew of things, whether it's, for them, it could be, their faith, their family, education, career, a whole lot of things that the person can consider important, most important in their lives. So these essentially are your values. The values are those things that we hold dear and that drive how we engage essentially in the world. Yeah.
Enrique, did you want people to put this in the chat, speak out, think about it, but themselves? Like, how would you like them to answer that question? To themselves silently, or put? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be coming up to that slide, and so they can answer that for themselves. Yeah, it'll be a self assessment. So yeah, thank you, Barbara.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that I would like for you to do, as Barbara did mention, in this moment, right now, in this where we are at this point in time, what would you consider those things that are most important for you yourself as a person? Those things that drive who you are, drive your actions, motivations that are near and dear to your heart. And again, these can be things that are common. 'Cause I think some of us will have values that cut across a lot of different categories, and some of them will be unique to our special unique situation in our lives, right? So yeah, so take a moment to think about those things, and maybe if you could think of maybe 5 of those values that you hold near and dear to your heart. And again, these are just for you, for your edification, for your general understanding of those things. And we normally don't do this, right? We're not, we don't think about these things every day. So it's good for us to think, what is it exactly that is driving what we do, the work that we do, our actions. And again, to give you some examples, it could be for other people, it's been faith, family, education, health, career, stability, could be wealth. So a whole slew of things. But again, this is for you and your knowledge and understanding of these for yourself. All right. So hopefully you've thought about some of those, and hopefully you've thought maybe at least about 3 of them that came to mind. So in this moment, we thought about those things that are near and dear to us, our values at this juncture in our lives. Do you think that if you did this thought exercise when you were younger, maybe 16 years old, do you think you would have selected or chosen the same values that you chose right now? And you can, for us as we look retrospectively at our lives, like during that time of your life, what were those things that were important for you at that time, at that point? For many of us, we're in high school, unless we're getting homeschooled, and our peers, our friends are super important at that point in time, right? That's essentially a big component of our world, whether it's school friends or friends in our neighborhood, becoming more and more independent as we get older. A lot of people start getting their driver's license at that point in time and becoming really excited about the the possibility of driving, maybe getting their own car, possibly starting to get like an actual formal job, whether working at a fast food place or something like that. But yeah, coming into our own is when that's taking place. So what are those things you think that you would have selected at that point in time? For me, I know that certainly I would not have chosen or selected the same values that I have now at this point in my life that I would have selected then. That I had a different perspective on life. So that goes to show, that as time goes by and as our life situation, as the, the the components of our lives change, our values can also change. So think about now, 20 years from now, what do you think, it could be 20 years, 25 years, 30 years from this point in time. What are the things that you think are going to be important for you in 25 years? Maybe for some of us, we're going to be deeply embedded in our career. Maybe for some people, they'll be getting to the end of the career. Maybe some people have already reached retirement at that point in time. So think about the things that are important for people at that stage in life, especially as they get to retirement age. They start thinking about more and more health-related matters because those things become more and more common to attend to. Thinking about whether it's children, grandchildren, legacy to leave behind. It's a core, but most. Barbara, can you? Okay.
Enrique, you keep cutting out. You froze for a little bit and you cut out.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I do apologize about that.
Oh, not a problem. It happens to all of us.
All right. So how was it for you in terms of thinking about the values that are important to you and near and dear to your heart at this point in time? Were you able to come up with those things pretty readily and easily, or did you have to really dig deep and think about those things that are important to you at this point in time? And you can share that again, either in the Zoom or the chat. We want to hear a little bit about how was that for you? Because for some of us, those are at the forefront of our minds in our lives, and for some of us, again, we never really think about those things. We are kind of in auto mode as we go through our lives, knowing those things are important in the back of our minds, but not necessarily thinking about them day to day, right?
Enrique, in the chat, somebody has said many have stayed the same: basic needs, housing, food, medical care.
Oh, okay.
Interesting point.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing, those of you who have shared. Yeah, there seems to be some common threads. Was there another one, Barbara?
Yeah, interesting, different takes on your question, right? One person is saying, I think about it every single day.
Okay.
Whilst another said the first 3 or 4 are easy to come up with, but the last 1 or 2 took a bit longer to really get there. Another, when I was 15, my parents weren't as important. So it's really interesting that there's been a mix. Earlier, there was a comment related to when you asked about being 16. No, I would have had different ones for sure. So it's interesting, the mix of takes on this.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, we are all unique individuals. We've all had different life experiences. So each of us are going to have different values that we are going to come up with. But some of them, again, some of them may be common across the board.
And
Not.
I'm just gonna read one the comment that said when I was 15, my parents weren't as important, added, or at least I didn't think they were. So that's kind of funny and also a deep truth, right? About that stability of the value. So
Yeah, and again, when you're at that age, you're coming into your own and you're becoming your own person. So your parents, you kind of see them as kind of holding you back, from becoming who you want to be at times for some people. All right, so what does all this mean? So what about, our values and these things? What does this have to do with our financial lives? It has a lot to do with it, right? So one of the things that I want to point out is that those values that you selected for yourself, think about what they are, what they were, and now think about how those values are reflected in your financial behaviors, your spending patterns. Are your financial behaviors and spending patterns supportive of those values? Are they reflected in your life, or not so much? And I'll give you, a couple of hypotheticals that kind of bring this point home. So let's say, for me, that I selected, or that I have health as one of my values, right? But in the way that I use my money, the way that I spend my money, my spending patterns and behaviors, it doesn't really reflect that, right? Maybe I'm spending my money on things that are not healthy for me, whether it's, alcohol, tobacco use, you know, food that is not healthy for me, junk food, certain habits that are more destructive than productive. So then there's a misalignment there, right? There's an unbalance between the value and the financial behavior and the financial patterns. And I can go through that assessment for each of the values that I hold dear, whether it's, family, education, stability, like especially financial stability. Are those kinds of things that I selected for me, are they being reflected in my life, in my spending patterns and behaviors? And so that's where we're really getting to the crux of the matter here. It's like how is the way that we use our money being reflected and supporting our values or not? Because again, it can be that maybe we do the way that we spend our money does support and reflect our values, but not so much, maybe a little bit. There's room for improvement. And again, none of us are in this room or anywhere are perfect. So we're not going to align 100% of the time, right? But there's a long gap between the value and our spending behaviors. Then there's work to be done there. We need to start thinking about that more consciously, and what can we do to reduce that gap there, to bring more alignment between our spending patterns and behaviors and our values. So that's where, again, the rubber meets the road in terms of where we're getting at. So we want to make sure that we are in alignment as much as possible in terms of our values and the way that we use our resources, our financial resources. And when we do that work first, because that's important work, then we are setting up ourselves for a greater likelihood of success as we move forward with our financial journey. If we don't do that work first, then we're really going to struggle. It's going to be like, one step forward or two steps forward, one step back, kind of a scenario. So it'll be more difficult to accomplish our financial goals if we don't do this work first. So right now I'm going to do a little, again, a self-reflective exercise for you. on this scale, so think about the conversations that we've had regarding the values and how they are reflective of your spending patterns and behaviors or not. So for each of the values that you selected, or as a whole, think about how much balance and alignment there is between your spending patterns and behaviors and the values. And you can assign yourself, and this is just for you, nobody's gonna know but you. This is for your own, for your, again, your own self-awareness. Assign yourself a number between 1 and 10, with 1 being very out of balance, it's completely out of balance, there's no alignment there. And then 10 being, the most balanced, or can be very balanced. Everything that I spent is reflective of my values. And I'm estimating that most people will fall somewhere in the middle, because again, none of us are perfect. But yeah, just assign yourself, in terms of this rating, a number of where you yourself would fall along this scale from 1 to 10. So just think about that for a minute, and assign yourself that number. Financial and wellness journey. If this is seeing an evaluation of our is how our values in the near, we're embarking to be much more to do that work. So this illustration here, a person who's
Enrique, you're breaking up quite a bit.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I really apologize. I'm not really sure what's coming over here. But yeah, just let me know when I do can retrack. So this work is important because it helps us to develop the alignment and balance we want to have in before we embark on our financial wellness journey. And so I like to use this visual of a person walking across a tightrope from one cliff to another. So imagine if this person doesn't find his balance first, how much more difficult and precarious it'll be for him to embark on this, walk from one side to the other. So it's really important for this person to find balance. Just like for us, it's important to find that money-life balance, to work on that initially, because otherwise, again, it makes it much more difficult for us as we move forward. You can also think about it in the form of when you're driving a car, like if you're taking a road trip, imagine your car being out of alignment. It's not balanced. And as you drive, maybe the car pulls consistently to one side, maybe the left or the right. So you'll get to your destination, but you're really struggling all the way to keep the car in the direction that you want it to go, right? It makes it more difficult. Versus, let's say you get the car aligned, your wheels aligned, then you're not struggling as much. So that's like another analogy why we want to make sure that we start off with the self-assessment, the self-evaluation of the money-life balance aspect. And so when we have that as a foundation, a foundational tool, then we have more alignment, and the greater likelihood of success for reaching our goals is that much greater, right? So we can think about it in terms of the goals that we have for ourselves, financial goals. How much less of a struggle it will be if we do this initially versus, how much more difficult it'll be if we don't. All right. And so how can we apply this in a more practical manner? And that's what we're going to be moving into in the next segment of our presentation where we're going to be talking more about cash flow, which essentially means budgeting, making sure that we're tracking the resources, the financial resources coming in the forms of earnings and income versus the resources that are leaving in terms of expenses. So that's what we're going to be moving into in the next segment. But at this point in time, I wanted to just make sure that if there's any questions that people have thus far, that we get an opportunity to answer those. Questions or comments?
Enrique, there are no questions in the chat at the moment. Does anyone want to either shout out a question or put one on the chat right now, or should we move on?
That's okay. Yeah, if people don't have questions, that's okay. So one of the things that I also wanted to point out, and it was something that I should have initially stated, is that our as it was mentioned initially, that our services are no cost, including the financial coaching services. So sometimes in the course of these kinds of presentations, in a group setting, we may find it a little bit difficult to ask a specific question that we may have. And so I want to make sure that if that is the case for you, also feel free to contact us. And I'll have my contact information at the very end. So if you do have anything that is more personal in nature that you really don't want to bring to the table during the course of a group setting, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, feel free to also, any questions that you may have, again, we'll have our contact information at the end of the presentation as well. Okay, thanks so much.
Enrique, just one thing on my side. I was thinking when I was looking at the person walking across from one mountain to another, I was thinking that you were talking about getting your balance at the beginning. But I think it looks like there must be adjustments also along the way. So I think with the financial, with somewhat with the financial coaching that you're talking about, right? There's a lot of time that you do spend up front, isn't it? Just thinking about these things and making sure that they're grounded, but that they do come up over time in terms of making adjustments. Does that relate to your financial coaching at all?
Thanks, Barbara. Yes. So as financial coaches, we're there to support you in terms of your financial journey. And of course, as I have mentioned, none of us are 100% perfect, right? And also, it's not just a matter of being imperfect, but also that things happen in our lives that we don't necessarily plan happening, right? Whether it's situations being of a health-related nature, things that arise with family that we didn't anticipate. So just life happens, right? Life happens at certain points in the life journey, and that may cause us to veer off of the direction that we were heading in initially. And it doesn't mean that it's a lost cause, right? Because that's one of the things that happens to all of us. But as long as we keep moving forward, we're here as financial coaches to help a person, again, recalibrate or refine the proper direction that they were moving towards initially. So yeah, there's going to be things that arise here and there in the course of our journeys, especially financial journeys, that kind of take us off course a little bit. But as long as we're heading in the general right direction, that's the important thing. So it's never, hardly ever, a straight line from point A to point B, from when we start on our financial goal to accomplishing that goal. Things come up throughout the course of that journey. And again, we're here as financial coaches to help a person reorient themselves and make sure that they find themselves back on track. But yeah, those things do arise, and that's why we as financial coaches are here to support a person whenever those kinds of unforeseen events happen, and they do happen, right? And one of the things that helps us to weather some of those things financially is savings, which is going to be one of the which is one of the 5 foundations of financial health, we're going to be talking about at a future workshop. Having some, especially emergency savings in place that help us to weather these kinds of life events. All right, so as we move towards tracking, well, as we move into the topic more of budgeting, cash flow. So essentially, again, when we're talking about cash flow, it's the flow of funds that are coming in versus the flow of funds that are going on in the forms of expenses. And the reason that this is one of the foundations is that it's very important to have a system in place that helps us to have a good understanding and a good way to track how this is happening, right? Because if we don't, then we're kind of just stumbling around in the dark, and it's really difficult to accomplish financial goals that way. You know, we're just trying to find our way all the time and not really have like a set system or a way to track these things and to really plan it out in place. So having a budget in place really is important for these reasons. To again, as you can see here, to eliminate the uncertainty as to how we are spending our money, and then to make the necessary changes, they'll be in greater alignment with our values. So often when we work as financial coaches with an individual and then we assess their current spending, many people are surprised when they actually see it, how much they're spending on a particular item, right, or particular category. And that prompts us to reevaluate or reflect on, is this expenditure, whatever it is that I'm looking at, is that really reflected in my values, or is it working against my values that I mentioned earlier? You know, am I spending way too much on, you know, eating at fast food restaurants when that's not really like the best healthy meal for me, right? And is that not in alignment with my value of health? So that would be like one example. So that's, you know, those are the reasons that, like the practical reasons why it is important to have these things in place. Another thing that also happens and that arises when we're working with people who bring this topic to the table is that, you know, often they say, you know, I'm working as much as I can, but at the end of the month, you know, I don't really know where all my money went, you know, all the money that I earned through my work. And so if we don't have a way to track our expenses, then it really becomes very difficult to know exactly where did our paycheck go at the end of, you know, the month or the 2 weeks when we got it. We know that we paid, you know, some bills and some expenses, but where did the rest go? And so that also is important for us in terms of planning and making sure that we have a good direction moving forward as to how we are going to accomplish some of our financial goals. Because if we're not really tracking how our money is being spent, it could be really a situation where it's being misspent or spent in a way that, you know, that we don't want it to be spent. So really having a budget helps us to identify those areas. Those are called budget leaks when we're losing income in different ways that we're not necessarily aware of it. Some of those budget leaks, again, are just spending patterns that happen throughout the course of our day or week that you know, we really don't pay much attention to. Some of those budget leaks can also be in the form of interest fees and charges that we're paying on particular items such as credit cards and loans. So those can be really big budget leaks that we're not necessarily accounting or having a good, clear understanding of as we move forward. So for you, again, this is more of a reflective exercise for all of you. In terms of currently your current system that you track your cash flow, your income versus expenses, what do you currently have in place? Some people have already a budget in place, and that's great. But when we work with individuals as financial coaches, we find that many people do not, right? And so that's why we're here to support them in developing a household budget. But for you, currently, what do you have in place, or do you have something in place, or how do you manage week to week, month to month your finances? Do you do mental math? In your mind, you keep track of how much you're earning on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and how much you're paying in rent, utilities, food. Is it all, you're calculating in your mind, your head, and then, try to make it work at the end of the month? Do you hope that everything works out? Maybe you just have you don't even do that, but you just you go day to day and hoping that everything works out, and then address issues as they arise. Or do you not even worry about it? Some people don't worry about it. They have a more laid back approach, and that's how they function. But yeah, for yourself, thinking about how you currently are managing your cash flow. Do you have a system in place?
Enrique, you've got a few answers in the chat
Okay.
already that are different. One has an Excel spreadsheet that they use every month, and they use a paper calendar. The
Wow.
second has mental math and hopes it works out. I know for myself for very long, I was mental math, hope it works out, but worried all the time. So,
Right. Yeah,
all three.
that's the other piece of the puzzle, right? Because the worrying about it is something that hovers over us all the time for those who don't have a good system in place. We're always in constant state of anxiety if I'm going to have enough for to pay the bills at the end of the month, the rent and everything else, the mortgage. So yeah, so a more laid back freestyle approach may work, for you from day to day, but it's not going to help you reach your long-term financial goals. So really, for long-term financial goals that we are all wanting to help support individuals with, we really want to make sure that we have a system in place, a plan of action that is going to be developed and enacted, that'll help you actually to see what progress is going to be made over time. How are we going to save X amount of money in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, if we don't have a plan of action to do so, right? So you want to make sure that we do those long-term, that we have a system to make sure that we meet those long-term goals and long-term planning objectives. So whenever we're talking about a budget is sometimes can be has a negative connotation, right? It's like, oh man, budget. And it we understand why, because it's at points it seems like it's really restricting a person in terms of what they can spend on a certain category. But we can also think of it in a more positive light, right? But and we'll see that in a little bit. But in terms of budgeting, essentially we're just again assessing your cash flow, the income that's coming in versus the income that's going out. And that's why I like to use the word cash flow versus budget, because again, budget has a negative connotation for a lot of people. But in terms of step one of this component of financial health, the first thing that we need to do for ourselves is to assess our current situation. Where are we in terms of our income and expenses at this point in time right now? Because we know what we would like it to be, right? We know that we would like to have a certain amount in savings or a certain amount for a specific purpose, to purchase a home, buy a car, whatever. But in order for us to get there, we need to understand the current situation that we are in first. And so it's important that we do an honest assessment initially of our financial cash flow situation. So what is the income that's coming in? And when I say income, it's your actual net income after taxes that are accounted for and your workplace deductions. So the money that you're actually receiving on your paycheck, that's coming in. So what is your current income, and what are your current expenses? And again, this is an honest assessment. What am I spending my money on right now? So that's step one. And that way, that helps us to really have a good understanding of how we are utilizing our financial resources, our income, our earnings. Where is our money going right now? And then once we take an honest look and have an honest assessment of that, then we can start having well, there's a couple things. We have a better understanding of how our money is being used, and then we can have a more in-depth conversation, whether it's with a financial coach, such as myself, or with yourselves, in your family, with your spouse or partner, or for yourself if you're single. We can have an honest conversation, dialogue of how we would like these expenses to be moving forward. Again, are we spending too much on a specific category, more so than we would like? And if so, how much is it that we want to cut back on that particular item? Whether it's eating out, whether it's entertainment, whether it's even things such as spending on cigarettes, alcohol, all those kinds of things that we may want to reassess and reevaluate in terms of how these things are going to be impacting or affecting our financial goals. Again, as we look towards the future, meeting our savings goals, or again, whether we want to purchase a home, purchase a car, specific items that we want to work towards. How are the way that we're spending our money now? How is it currently going to support that, or cause a little bit of detriment to us to do that? So the first step, again, assessing, having an honest assessment of one's current situation. So assessing the cash flow currently. That's the first budget. And then secondly, once we do that, then we develop the second budget number 2, the one that's going to be more reflective of our values and our goals that we want to accomplish. So what is our current and adjusted income, and then what are our revised expenses? Once we have an honest conversation about our current expenses, how much is it that we really would like to cut back on eating out? Maybe I'm spending $300 eating out right now, and I want to cut back on that. Maybe instead of 300, I want to just spend 200. So 200 becomes my new budget item for that expense, right? And I did make as you can see where it says current adjusted income, when we have a look at budget number 1, the first assessment, sometimes there is a little bit of latitude or a little bit of room to adjust your take-home pay in the form of how much is being deducted in your paycheck for different categories, especially like if you're contributing to like a retirement plan, like a 401k or 403b, things like that, where you may be contributing a lot at the expense of now your current moment in time, really not having enough. So we also want to have that conversation. Do we want to adjust that a little bit so that your situation is not such at a tight margin, week to week, month to month, causing you a lot of anxiety and stress? So that's like another kind of conversation that we have with people whenever we do this budget exercise. And as a financial coach, we're there to support you in having those kinds of evaluations and discussions to see and think about, is there any way that can be modified? And then also, again, the revised expenses will be, what are the expense items that we want to cut back on? What are going to be the new expense items? What the new amount that I'm going to be spending on, whether it's eating out, entertainment, alcohol, cigarettes, those things that have a lot of wiggle room, so to speak. When we're talking about groceries and basic expenses, there may not be a lot of room to, to shift there, but there still may be. But we're looking mainly at those other categories. So then that becomes our budget that we really want to stick to once we have that honest assessment and revise the expenses that we reconsidered. When it comes to budgeting tools, there's a lot of different ways to track a person's cash flow. Somebody mentioned they already have an Excel spreadsheet in the chat, so that's one way certainly. There's the envelope system, kind of like a retro a retro way to keep track of one's funds when people actually used cash. They had an amount of money they kept in an envelope for a specific category, and once that money was spent, they couldn't dip into any other envelope. So that was the envelope system. There's programs such as QuickBooks, and there's also a lot of apps, as you can see here. Apps such as Credit Karma, Pocket Guard, Monarch Money, YNAB, You Need a Budget, Simplify, and Rocket Money. Most of these apps are free of charge, although they have versions that you pay for, but usually they're introductory. The more basic ones are free of charge. And they're really, when it comes to the best way to track your cash flow, there's no right way or wrong way, as long as it works for you, because what works for me may be different than what works for Barbara or what works for anybody else on this call. So finding the one that works for you, and you may have to go through try out different ways until you find the one that really calls out to you and really motivates you to keep using it. Because if it becomes very difficult for you to use and you're finding it super challenging, you're probably not going to stick with it. And if you don't stick with it, it's not really going to be useful for you. So you want to make sure that it's useful and that it's something that's going to work for you in the long run. Right? Because there's so many tools, so many apps out there. Some of them are super, they have a lot of bells and whistles. But if it becomes too overwhelming, then again, it may not, it may not serve you in the long run if it's too much. So those are the ways that we want to make sure that we are assessing and evaluating our expenses through a budget. And that's one of the main things that we do as financial coaches whenever we work with an individual, through financial coaching, is we help them develop these cash flow systems and tools. And if somebody already has something that they're using, that's great. We don't want to change that. If it's working for you, that's really great. So we work with you with whatever is already working with you or for you. But if you don't have something in place, we help a person to establish something in place. And again, it really is going to be helpful for a lot of different things, including paying down debt, developing savings, contributing to long-term goals, whether it's retirement goals, purchasing a home, those kinds of things that take a longer span of time. It's really difficult to do that without a budget. So we really need to make sure that we do that and that we have that in place. And it also helps you to really help your money go further. If you give every dollar a job in your budget, it optimizes your income. You know what each and every dollar you earn is, where it's going. And it could even be going to fun things, right? So it doesn't, a budget doesn't mean no fun because you can budget, you can determine, you can allocate how much do I want to spend every month on entertainment or, going out at restaurants, So we want to make sure that you also view it that way. We're not taking the fun out of your life because that's not going to be good for anybody. But yeah, and doing that and having an actual number that you have in place really is it helps to create some freedom for you and less anxiety, because during the course of the month, I can eat out and spend $300 on that, and that's my limit. And once I reach that point, I'm going to wait until the next period, or the next time. So it also creates a little bit of freedom in terms of you don't have to watch, or you don't have to have anxiety about how you're spending your money day to day, week to week. Okay. And one of the things that I did want to mention is that once we have that assessment of how we're spending our money, we can make those changes that we want to make. Once we are aware that we're spending X amount on a specific category, we can work on changing that, right? And whenever we talk about shifting or changing our expense item or expenditures, we don't ever want it to be something that's unrealistic, right? So for example, let's say somebody smokes a pack of cigarettes a day, and cigarettes are expensive, right? That's going to be a lot of money over the course of the year, but that's their reality, right? It would be very unrealistic for me or for the client, if this person is my client, to say, you're spending way too much money on cigarettes, let's stop. That would be nearly impossible for that person to do, like to go cold turkey, right? That would not be realistic, and it would cause a lot of stress and anxiety for this person. So the way to shift those kinds of behaviors is to do it gradually over time. So maybe in terms of how many cigarettes a person is smoking a day, I think it's 12 cigarettes in a pack. Let's say that. I'm not super familiar with cigarette packs, but let's say it's 12 cigarettes per pack. Instead of doing 12 a day, let's just do 11, and let's see how that goes for for a week, and then adjusting gradually as we move forward. After 1 week of 11 a day, then it's 10 a day, and then 9 a day. So making that adjustment gradually over time is much more realistic. And this can apply towards anything else that we're looking at in terms of adjusting our expenditures, whether it's eating out, whether it's spending money on entertainment or alcohol, or whatever it is that we're trying to cut back on. It would be really difficult to go from 100 to 0, and unrealistic and probably not sustainable. So those gradual changes over time are what we want to implement, because they give us a greater likelihood of success and sustainability over time, over a long period of time. Then, because if I say to a person, you got to go from 1 pack a day to 0 packs a day, he may do it for 1 day, but then he's going to go back because it's not sustainable or realistic. So we also have those kinds of conversations with people whenever we're doing the assessing of their budgeting and cutting back on expenses. And again, it helps us to enjoy our lives a little bit more, because we don't have this anxiety hanging over our heads all the time of whether we spend too much or how we're using our money. Because if we know the exact amount that we're spending on a particular category, it really frees us up. And it lets us know that we have an X amount to spend on a particular thing, and then after that, then we wait until the next period. So really it's a sense of freedom that we get from when we have a set budget in place that is in alignment with our values. And so last thing I wanted to say as we finish up is that financial coaching, it's similar to fitness coaching. The first thing is to decide to do it. And then there's a lot that comes into play in terms of what the person brings to the table. We as coaches are here to guide and support, but we can't do the work ourselves for you. Just as a fitness coach is not gonna go run 5 miles and you're gonna get the benefit of that, right? But having a financial coach helps us to stay accountable, because we know that we're going to be meeting with our financial coach on a regular basis, and we know that we have certain items that we want to do before each session to meet with the coach, and they will help to lead to results over time. So we invite you. We're here for you. As I mentioned, any questions that you may have had during the course of the presentation that that you didn't get a chance to ask, feel free to reach out to us here. Here's my email, our contact information, all of our information for you to reach us.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate your time and the valuable information that you shared. If you guys want to put in any questions, we can stay on for a couple minutes. And while I give you guys time to do that, I'll just give you a couple little nuggets of information. If you have questions, you can reach out to Enrique. I'll include this in the follow-up email too, so you have his contact information, or please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to facilitate getting the answer. The next session in this series is going to be focused on credit and debt and will be on September 16th. And until then, you can visit our Savings Collaborative page on the Chamber website. I will also include that in the follow-up for resources and any other educational and actionable tools. And Barbara did let us know that she could share some budgeting templates, so I'll include those as well. And then they are coming up with new resources all the time. So as Savings Collaborative comes up with new resources and short form videos and things like that, we will include them in our emails to our members and in our social. We've worked closely with the Savings Collaborative to get this launch ready, and we truly believe that this program has the ability to help our workforce. So please share it with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues. Ask me any questions you have. Reach out to Enrique if you have any questions. Yeah, we're excited to have it here. I don't think I see any other questions, Barbara. Do you, wait, there is one.
One just popped up, but I'm wondering if a one-on-one with Enrique may be better because it's a big one. Is it better to focus on paying down our debts before savings in our budgets? Enrique, I don't know if you can answer that in 30 seconds, or would you rather have a call?
No, that's a great question, and I would say yes. In general, and we always want to look at each individual situation specifically, but in general, yes, it's better to pay down debt because I mentioned during the course of the presentation, there's budget leaks, and people lose a lot of their income, their hard-earned money, through interest, fees, and charges, more so than they would earn in a savings account. So it's always more cost effective to focus on paying down the debt. But again, it's also dependent on each person's unique situation. So for further, more specific guidance, I'd be glad to speak further with that person if they have that need to talk about it further.
Yeah, thank you, Enrique. I always say debt is a form of savings. In the beginning, I was introduced as Dr. Barbara, and God knows how many years I spent paying down interest. And finally, one day, I thought this is going to be the focus of my life. I'm going to pay off that student loan. And not only did it change my cash flow, it changed my life, actually. It was a goal to get this doctorate, but at the same time, it really threw a balance off in how much interest was going out the door for me. And so it was really interesting to work with a guideline. So just to close the loop on your values, your goals, your cash flow, I thought I would just add that little tidbit.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Enrique. And we'll see you again in September. Everyone have a wonderful week. And yeah, reach out if you need anything.
Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
everybody. Have a great rest of your day.